that if you've got some questions that maybe you've always wanted to ask one of us, and well, now for the next little while you can do that. We have got a couple of questions up here just in case there's like nobody's got any questions. We would love, first of all, just to invite you guys, if you've got any questions, just to maybe where you're at, just to raise your hands, and maybe it's like, why did you choose to become a youth minister? Or what was college like for you? Or what was high school? Or things like that there. And so if you've got a question, just direct them to one of us. And it can sometimes be silly questions too, but just be sensitive to in your questions, and we'll try and answer them as best as we can. And also, just while I'm here as well, tonight is our last Sunday night for 2 weeks, so we'll not be here next Sunday night or the Sunday night after, because some of our friends are already on spring break, and some of you guys will be on spring break next week, and then it's Easter Sunday, so tonight is our last night for 2 weeks. But first of all, anybody got any questions? Okay. What's that?
Just remember when you're asking these questions who you're asking them to, and to be respectful. If you know that, you shouldn't ask, then don't. But if it's a good question, definitely ask away.
All right, we got a question. Owen?
Oh, God. Okay, no. So I was just wondering, what made you, step into this and drop out of, college to, continue doing this?
Are we going to write this down or going for it? We're going for it.
Okay, so I did not drop out of college, going straight into this. That wasn't my intention. I dropped out of college to move to New York, which is kind of wild. But I went to Lipscomb, and somehow I kind of lost sight of God and stuff. And Lee and Lindsay were the people that kind of got me back on track. And Lee wanted me to apply for this position. So I don't know, things just kind of fell into place after I dropped out. I was lost, and then God I was found.
We tend to find people sometimes.
Yeah, Adam found me. So.
Question.
Juan, do you have a girlfriend?
I do not have a girlfriend. So if anyone has an older sister.
Don't send them Juan's way.
Yeah.
Question at the back.
Yeah, Grayson.
Say that again? Biggest
Great
what?
question.
Biggest test in faith? Whew.
That's good.
Lee, you got one?
Of course. Yeah, I'm not ready yet.
I'm not.
I would say there's been a big one almost in every phase of faith life for me. When I was in high school, I wasn't really a Christian when I was in middle school, so it's hard to relate to y'all's age exactly. But when I was later on in high school, the biggest test of my faith was the idea that God was calling me to be a minister. And so that was a huge test, because I was like, who the heck am I to go and become a minister? And so for me, that was the hugest test, and the largest test in that phase of my faith life, because I didn't feel like I was really qualified to do that. And I really, really wrestled with that idea. In my mid-20s, my mom passed away from breast cancer. And so I think that was one of the biggest tests. And not God, where are you in the midst of this? But who am I as a minister? I struggle with the idea of being a minister to my mom, who is passing away, and who I was as a husband at that time, and kind of which role did I play? And I think that was the biggest test there for my faith, was what role do I play at that point in my faith?
Yeah, I think my biggest test in my faith was whenever I moved here, and so I was discerning and praying about God, where was next, and I felt like God was speaking to me and telling me to come to here, but at the same time that's a big risk, and especially I'd never been here before. I didn't know any family. I had no family, no friends, no idea what I was going to do, anything like that, and so that was a big test, a big time of just okay, God, I'm all in, I'm going to trust you, but that was probably the most testing of my faith, I think.
I'd say my biggest test actually was just being here right now, and kind of what I'm doing over at Trinity. Like whenever I moved to Nashville like 5 years ago, and I'd always led worship throughout high school and growing up and stuff, and I led a little bit when I got down here, and I had kind of a bad experience at a church down here that sort of made me turn away from leading worship. And so for I guess like 3.5 years, when I tell people this, because this is sort of this thing that I'm going through right now, my field of vision was just kind of had this one goal in mind, and that was to be famous. You know, everybody wants to be famous. So I had this one goal, and always in this period where I was sort of, you know, I don't want to lead worship, I don't want to do that. Leading worship was always like right here in my peripheral, just like waiting for me, you know, just like saying, hey, I'm here whenever you're ready. I'm here whenever you're ready. And I finally got to a point where I got to start leading at Trinity, and then on a wild hair, I applied for this position, and now I'm doing this. So honestly, my biggest test is going through this kind of time of not feeling like leading worship is what I want to do, or it's something that I could do or whatever. And getting to be here and at Trinity is you know, it's kind of a cool thing to see, at least personally. So.
Man, I feel like a little bit like Adam. Like I feel like I've had a test or a season in every step of my faith journey. I think the most recent one is that my husband and I can't have children, and so biologically, and so that's just been a real, like that's, you never go into life expecting changes like that, and so that's been something I've really had to grieve and process through, and it's sort of still every day just feels really raw and real. We have an amazing gift in the little one that we have, but that's its own grief process as well, so that's been a huge one for me, and it's sort of the first time in my life I remember being like, but why me? Like, why God? And I don't feel like in any other season I really asked that question. So.
Yeah, I think like my biggest test in faith, I'm kind of failing, if you can, I don't know, like this past year, like literally like 1 year ago today, like all the way to today, like it's been just really random. Like I'm having a lot of trouble trusting in God. Like I want answers now, you know, like I want to know what I'm doing tomorrow or like next year, like now, you know. And that's really hard to just like let that go and just like let God. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions? One right here.
I was just wondering, this kind of relates to the last question, but when you're having like really doubtful times or unfaithful times, how do you get through those? Like how do you, this is for everyone, just like how do you just keep going?
I think my focus is, I remember, I always tell stories, but like I remember a youth group that I was leading in Clarksville, and we had a lot of stuff happen in a few months, and loss of some student, and then some other people in the church, and it was just a really, really heavy season. And one, just acknowledging the season that you're in, and saying like, being able to say and kind of almost confess to God and to yourself, say like, I'm in a bad season. Like this is rough, this is hard. So one, being able to kind of confess it to both yourself and that, and then also like I just kind of told my students through that, I was like, just rely on God for one moment at a time. Like just focus at the current moment, and I think that God provides love and grace and sustainability just in each moment at a time. And so I've always kind of focused on just win today. Like focus on today, win this day, and tomorrow I'll wake up again, God willing, and I'll try to win tomorrow through the love of God's grace. And so that's kind of it for me, is do that, and then find the little things that if your goal is to win today, what are the things that are going to help you do that in your faith journey?
Yeah, and I think it's totally okay. We get the question all the time, is it okay to doubt God? And I say absolutely. And there's many times too where I like throw a fit. to God, and I'm like so angry, and I'm having like these conversations in the car on the way to work or on the way somewhere. And I'm like, sometimes I end up in tears just at like a situation. And I remember just a season that Caitlin and myself walked through last year of within like 4 months, her 2 grandfathers passed away, and her mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that was like in the space of 4 months, and for weeks our faith was so low. And there was a season where we just completely doubted God, and there was a season where we were actually very, very angry, and a season also where we were just in tears all the time, just in questioning God, why. And so I think that it's totally okay to feel those things. And in the midst of that, God was always there. And in the midst of whenever I broke down, and in the midst of stuff happening, God was still in those moments. And what I realized that every day God was still there and saying, I'm still here. I'm here. Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Okay, you're not done yet. I'm still here. And so it's okay to be angry at God.
This is such a good question, and one I'm like feel like I'm asking myself constantly, like what is the thing that sort of brings me back? I feel like I've been in a little bit of a haywire season, and I feel like some of my coping strategies are really terrible, really awful. Like he like yells at God, but like yell at other people. You know what I mean? Like I'm yelling at my husband, and how do you get back on track? I don't know that I have a complete answer to that. I think in every season it's looked a little bit different for me. One thing I learned when I was studying in social work was grounding. And it's like when you move from one thing to the next, you sort of recenter yourself, which sounds really like, But one thing that a teacher told me to do one time was every time I entered my house, like going from work to home in that transition and trying to bring myself back down to earth was to like change into home clothes, so I wasn't in my work clothes at home. And that just that is the kind of thing I just center myself, put my feet on the ground, remind myself who I am, one step at a time kind of thing. And that doesn't always come super easy. I'll just be honest. I don't know. I think remembering the hope that I put my trust in when I became a Christian and a follower of Christ, and it always just goes back to the simplicity of grace. But it's hard. I don't know that I have a great thing that always brings me back.
Yeah, for me, the thing that Adam said really resonated with me, like taking it one day at a time. But also, I read a book recently, and where one of the main characters I did read a book, crazy, huh? Where one of the main characters, I connected a lot with him because I feel things all the time. Like I'm so emotional, so I have to go all the way through that emotion. I have to let myself, if I'm sad, I have to be sad all the way and just let myself weep in the car and let myself do that. And that's how I get over that emotion, if that makes sense. And so if I'm mad at God, I'm gonna do the same thing Derek does. I'm gonna scream, and then I'm gonna turn a worship song and say sorry and stuff, But yeah.
I'll just, not to cheat, I guess, but just pretty much repeating what Juan and Derek says. It's a lot of kind of living. I heard a pastor one time say, living in the tension. So for me, it's a lot of that. It's sort of just knowing that comes with the territory of being a Christ follower, that you're gonna have doubts. You're gonna have days where you're like, what am I doing? God, what are you doing? But it's just the attitude of if I'm going to go through this tough time, God, I'm trusting you to bring me out on the other end. And he has yet to fail me, and I bet any of these guys can tell you he has yet to fail them. So, it's a lot of that.
Awesome.
I would point you to Davis's sermon last week. I re-listened to it this week. Davis's sermon is spot on some of this topic. God is big enough to handle our anger and our doubt. And I think sometimes that's what we forget. If God created everything and created us, we are belittling the idea of God or the presence of God when we think God can't handle our doubt. And so I think being able to embrace, I'm angry with God right now. You might have a reason to, and I think God can handle that.
All right. Any other questions? We got one here. Hold on. Let's see. Go ahead.
What was your first job
Baskin Robbins.
Really?
Baskin Robbins. Yep, it was awesome. 31. Yes, I ate so much ice cream and it was awesome.
Baskin Robbins? What was yours, Juan?
Okay, y'all. You can't judge me.
I can't wait.
Okay, junior year in high school, my first job. This is okay. At Opry Mills Mall, I was the Easter Bunny. So maybe you guys sat on my lap. Who knows? Okay, yeah, that's too far. Sorry, my bad.
That's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
It's pretty bad. It's embarrassing.
You were the Easter Bunny? Did you have a line? Did you have to say something?
No, you can't speak as the Easter Bunny.
Oh, you
just
can't?
have to except they can't see your face, so you look. But I would still make that face inside the suit and realize I was being. I don't know.
That is so good.
Lee?
Mine was babysitting.
My first job, technically, I guess I didn't get paid for that, unfortunately. But my grandfather and my grandma owned this 40,000-acre ranch in southeastern New Mexico, and one summer, I remember we went out there and I helped brand and castrate the cattle, and I technically got paid for that, so I guess that was my first job.
My first job was working on a farm. It was an equestrian farm, it's like a horse farm. And I started off by basically shoveling horse poop every day. Yeah, that was fun. And then I went up the ranks there, and so I got to teach kids. Eventually, got to teach kids how to horse ride. So that was my first job.
Good.
Another question.
Got one in the back. Oh.
Oh, so
Sorry.
we got Brooke over here. Yeah. Has your everyday life got in the way of your faith life? Oh, I would say for myself, absolutely. I would say one of the difficulties about being a youth minister, and maybe I'm not sure if we all feel this, but sometimes your faith can become your job. And so often, I'm reading my Bible. I'm reading my Bible literally every day. But so often it's to plan for a Sunday night, or plan for a Bible study on Wednesday, or to plan a Sunday school. And so sometimes it becomes almost like a work tool, as opposed to something that it's breathing life into me personally. And sometimes whenever you're here, I mean, some people ask us, what do y'all do? Do y'all ever leave the church? Do y'all do y'all sleep here and live here? We do leave this building, I promise. But sometimes whenever we leave here, at the end of the day, we almost, sometimes I have days where I'm I don't even want to go home and open my Bible. Because I've just been tired and I've been reading it all day. And so, yes, there sometimes is the danger of being in ministry and working here. You have those days where sometimes it's hard on my faith life, for sure.
I would say that my everyday ordinary life gets in way of my calling. Did I say that completely backwards? I feel like I just... When I don't allow my life outside of this place to align with the calling that Christ has placed on my life, then it gets in way of each other. And so that's when I realize that it's I need to realign, because I'm not, this part of my life is getting in way of what Christ has called me to do. And to me, that's a sign that it's I'm letting my life get out of focus. I'm kind of spiraling out. So.
For sure, yeah.
Same. I was going to say the same thing, kind of what Derek said with reading the Bible, but for me, it comes through the form of listening to worship music. I find sometimes that I'm just listening to say, oh, what can we do, or what can we sing on Sunday, instead of really letting it minister to me and really taking in the message of the music. So.
Talk about your first girlfriend or boyfriend.
First girlfriend. What? What did you say? I think did we not talk about this a couple weeks ago?
I think so.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Mine was, I'm pretty sure mine was like in the 5th grade for Valentine's Day. I got her like one of the like heart-shaped candy things, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I like threw it at her from the front of the bus all the way to the back.
That's cute. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone wants to know, right? Does anyone here, if you know me at all, you know my favorite kind of cheese is queso. Yeah, love it. No, yes, it is.
Lee loves
It
her
is
queso.
too. Las Palmas cheese is a type. It's a way of life. It is not a cheese, it's a way of life. Amen. All right, what else?
Have we got any other questions? Oh, yeah. Oh, so we got one up here. What's your Jesus jam? Oh, yeah. What's yours? Yeah. Mason, what's your favorite?
My favorite that still speaks to me and still just gets me really like amped is an old Hillsong song. You guys might have heard of it. Hillsong song, yeah. Called "From the Inside Out." Does anybody know that song? Yeah, it's pretty old, but I still really love that song, and it still makes me weep.
I like In Christ Alone, an old hymn. In Christ Alone.
Go for it, Lee.
She's got to stop.
Uh-oh.
There's so many for me. I could start a Spotify playlist up here, but just one. Okay, there's a new, it's not new, but it's called Do It Again. But you got to listen to the gospel version, because that's when you like, oh, it's Do It Again, Elevation Collective, not Elevation Worship. Write this down, everyone. Got it? Elevation Collective, yeah.
I have to go back to this song that'll get me every time. It's not really like a worship song, but it's definitely a Jesus jam. And that's a guy named Derek Webb wrote a song called Wedding Dress. And that just like, it like strips me to my core every time.
It's a good song. Lee, mine as well as In Christ Alone. Yeah, we had that at our wedding, and let's jam out. Let's not. No, that's one of my favorites. That and does anybody else know the old hymn, I Stand Amazed? Anybody? Yeah, like that one? We could, yeah, cool. So that's our Jesus jams. Oh man.
Favorite song in general?
Your favorite song in general?
This one more.
Yeah, let's get another question first.
How did you realize your call from God?
Oof.
You won't forget about it.
How did we hear about our calling from God?
Yeah, ask yours too.
What's your biggest fail?
Okay. So my call. So I was in high school and I was wondering what I was going to be doing with my life. Obviously, my first job was with horse poop, and didn't think I was going to do that forever. And so I quickly then found my passion in woodworking, and so you all know I do a little bit of that, but I loved doing that in high school. And I thought I was going to do this as forever, but it didn't work out. And the whole time, I wasn't really going to church. I didn't become a Christian until I was 17 years old, and I didn't have a youth group. The youth group was me and my two sisters. How fun! And so, youth ministry wasn't really on my radar until I gave my heart to the Lord when I was 17. A ministry group was in town, and then my life really changed. And they asked me to come to a school with them and to like teach this little lesson. And so I went with them, and just being with them for the week really opened my idea to be working with young people. I actually took a year out between high school and college because I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I interned in a church. During that year, I interned in a church in Belfast, and over that year, God really spoke to me. Yeah, that's kind of where I experienced God's call on my life to become a youth minister, was on a gap year.
I'm sorry. I feel like I knew from a really young age, like maybe from teenage, that I was called to work in local church. But I ran from that call for a really long time because I'd seen a lot of my friends like go to seminary or work in a church and become like different And I was like, absolutely not. So I went to school for something else. Got my master's in something else, spent a ton of money on a degree. And then when I got done with that degree, realized like I've been running from a call in my life for a really long time. And so I just worked with a pastor who I respected, and he just kind of over a year just sort of mentored me, and we just decided that yeah, I was probably meant to like walk in that call, and I did, and I ended up here. So yeah, I had a kind of change of direction.
For me, it was like I kind of felt this tug, and I remember my youth minister one day, I was being really obnoxious, which is a really big shocker. And he yelled at me from the stage. He was like, one day you're going to annoy you when you're a youth minister. And I was like, dang it. And he's right. Sometimes my personality in you guys annoys me. And so I give myself a hard time. But for me, it took somebody kind of speaking into my life and realizing that maybe there was a call in my life. And then it was really simply, I started just trying to live as a high schooler, as kind of 17, 18, just trying to live like I saw Christ live. And as I started to do that, my friends' lives around me started to change, and they started to want to live like this person Christ too. And I finally just realized, I was like, I think that's my calling. If I can be around people and tell people about Jesus, then maybe they can experience the love that I've experienced as well. And so. My biggest fail is like, I have this really long story, you can come ask me later, about me explaining creation to 4th and 5th graders, and it didn't go well.
I got many fail stories, but one was my first job in youth ministry in America, and they were having like a bonfire, and they said, Derek, you're in charge of doing the s'mores. And I said, cool, I got s'mores. We did s'mores in Ireland. I can do that. And so I turn up to the bonfire, and I mean, there's like 50, 60 kids, and all I have is marshmallows. And like I got like a couple of sticks, and I'm like, awesome, guys, I got the marshmallows, I got the s'mores, ready to go. This is going to be awesome. And kids are like, where's the chocolate? Where's the graham crackers? I'm like, oh, I forgot. I didn't even know those were things of s'mores. Like, we just have marshmallows in Ireland. I don't know if that's a big fail, but to me, like, I let down so many teenagers because they wanted the Hershey's chocolate. Also, there was this one time in Belfast, and so we had this youth drop-in centre, and kids just from all over this like really rough estate came in, and I was working in a Catholic drop-in centre at this time, and if you know anything between Catholics and Protestants, they do not like each other. And so whenever I first went there, the first thing that they asked me was like, are you a Protestant? And it's like, yes, I am. And they're like, okay, come on in. But they let me come in. But they were annoying me this one night, and they would not get out of the drop-in centre, and it was 10 o'clock at night. And now there's this group of Catholic young people, and they would not get out. And I shouted out, and I said, okay, the last one to get out of here loves the Queen. And they darted out of there. Now, a lot of you guys don't know, but the Queen is like the monarch of England, which is kind of the head of Protestant England. And so they do not like the Queen. And so for me to yell out this in this Catholic drop-in centre was a big, big horror fail. But all of them left and didn't come back. So it's great.
Amazing. I have a couple. I have like a zillion. Two that come to mind. One is like really a silly one, but I was getting some senior girls a gift, like a graduation gift. They invited me to their graduation party, and I was so excited. And I found these little cups, and they had the monogram on them. You know, we love monograms or whatever. And I found out they were wine glasses. They were not regular cups, so that was a big fail. Nothing like a gift from your youth minister, right? One, though, that's a serious one for me is, I mean, I've had so many of these. This is just recent, so it comes to mind. But like where I felt like I was meeting with a student, and I felt like I was well-intentioned and that I had their best interest in mind, and I was sort of in a confrontational space, like wanting to encourage them in some growth areas, and it came off totally different than I intended it to. And it really, really hurt the other person. And so those are things constantly, like, it may seem like you could come to our office and we have it all together and we have all the answers, but I literally had to sit back in front of this person and say, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. That was not my heart. That's not what I meant. And the truth is that happens in our lives all the time. Like, we don't have it all together. We don't have the answers, and we mess up a lot. And we're learning and growing just like you guys. So that's one for me that just sort of resonates.
I was on a mission trip a couple years ago. I guess it was, I don't know, I was still in high school, I think. Yeah. I was in high school, and I was on a mission trip to Honduras. And whenever I was down there, I wanted to bring some souvenirs for my family back. So I was going through this town we were in, and I was getting, little jewelry, little cheap piece of jewelry for my sister and my brother, and this little mug for my dad. And for my brother, I thought it'd be really awesome if I brought back a machete for him. So in Honduras, on the street, they're just selling machetes. And so I got one for him, and I thought it was cool, so I'm gonna get one for myself too. So I have these two, 2.5 foot long Honduran machetes that I pack, I put in my bag, I put all my stuff on top, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And so we're going to the airport, and I don't think anything of it. I'm like, this is gonna be nice and easy. And we get on the plane, we fly into Dallas, we're going through customs, and I walk up, I tab my bag, and I have my two machetes in my bag, and I'm walking through, and the guy asks, do you have anything to declare? And I really had no idea what he was talking about. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to declare, if you have anything from a different country, what are you doing? I had no idea what he was talking about, and I said, well, I guess I'm happy to be back in America. And he just looked at me and stamped my thing, and he was like, glad to be back, next. And so I just kind of rolled on thinking nothing of it. And when I get home, I take out these two machetes, and my mom is freaking out because she doesn't know how I got them. And I was like, yeah, I told him this. And so anyway, my biggest fail, I guess, I smuggled 2 Honduran machetes into the U.S.
Okay, so back to my Easter Bunny job. So one time, well, first of all, first fail, right off the bat. I was hired as the photographer, okay, guys? But our Easter Bunny ran away. So I was Easter Bunny the rest of the season. He quit in the middle of the job, ran away from the Easter Bunny egg station. I don't know what to call it. There's hallways hidden inside the mall. I don't know if you guys know this. But so he left the costume just right there. And so I had to hop in the costume, right? And I didn't have a belt. I had to hop in. Yeah, okay. I didn't have a belt. You have to tie a belt look at me. Easter Bunny has to be nice so my pants were falling down for 3 hours. Guys, I was walking around and sagging Easter Bunny. Okay, whatever. So yeah, that was my biggest fail. Yeah.
All right. I think that's enough questions. But our whole hope tonight was that just in finishing out, so we don't have youth group for the next couple of weeks, but wanting you to realize that we're also real people and that we do not have this whole faith thing together. And I know we answered some fun and silly questions too, but some serious stuff that we also doubt. And there's serious parts of our lives too where we go through parts of our lives where we're just angry at God or questioning why. And so, but we also love hearing your questions. And so if you have questions that maybe you wanted to ask tonight and you would love to ask us sometime.
Tweet me.
Guys at the front. Nathan, chill.
Just kidding.
So maybe if you want to ask us some questions during the week, please just send us a message. We'd love to grab coffee with you. If it's some faith questions or anything, we would love to chat to you about those. But you guys have got a little bit in small groups, so you are dismissed.